When I came back home after a few months away, I expected to see my quiet piece of land, the one I'd worked years to buy. Instead, I found construction crews, luxury cars, and a massive hotel standing right in the middle of my property. My mailbox was gone, my fence had vanished, and the HOA president acted like I was trespassing. They said it was all a community improvement project. But as it turns out, their biggest mistake wasn't building without permission. It was for as long as I can remember, my little patch of land was my peace. A quiet escape just outside the city, surrounded by oak trees, sunlight, and silence. I bought it years ago, piece by piece, from the savings I'd built over a decade of hard work. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. A few acres where no one told me what to do, where I could letters slipped into mailboxes reminding people to trim their grass exactly to regulation height. Warnings issued for leaving trash cans out 15 minutes too long. And then came the meetings. Endless meetings where they talked more about power than community. Still, I kept my distance. I wasn't even technically part of the HOA's inner circle. My land bordered their development, but I'd been assured my property was independent. No rules, no fees. Just me and my space. That's exactly how I liked it. But then things started to change. Surveyors began showing up unannounced. Trucks rumbled down my dirt road carrying equipment I hadn't approved. And every time I asked what was going on, someone new from the HOA would appear with a fake smile and vague answers about improvements to the area. I didn't know it yet, but those so-called improvements were the start of something much bigger. A plan so bold, so arrogant, that it would turn my peaceful land into the center of a legal storm no one saw coming. Because while I was away on business for a few months, they made a decision that would change everything. Not just for them, but for me too. And when I finally came back home, my driveway was freshly paved, lined with decorative streetlights. At first, I thought maybe I'd taken a wrong turn. But when I saw my old oak tree at the corner, the one I planted my first year living there, my stomach dropped. I was home. And my home was gone. In its place stood a 4-story building of glass and concrete. Workers in uniforms rushed around with clipboards, landscapers trimmed hedges, and a valet stand stood right where my mailbox used to be. I parked and stepped out, trying to process what I was seeing. My land, my registered property, had been transformed into what looked like a high-end boutique hotel. A man in a suit walked toward me, clipboard in hand. "Sir, this area is restricted," he said, waving me. The next few days were chaos. Every phone call I made led to another dead end. County zoning, property records, legal offices, everyone was looking into it. It was as if my entire property line had been erased from the map. The HOA president, a man named Douglas Grant, finally agreed to discuss it with me. I met him in the hotel's half-finished lobby, my land now covered with marble floors and chandeliers. Douglas was the kind of man who I dug through every document I had, my deed, my survey records, the county plat maps. And that's when I noticed something strange. The HOA had filed an amended boundary request just 2 months after I left town, a request that conveniently included my parcel number. It should have been impossible without my signature, but somehow someone had approved it. So I went to the county clerk's office demanding answers. The clerk, an older woman who'd worked there for years, pulled up the file. When she scrolled through the digital signature section, she frowned. "That's odd," she said. "Your signature's here, but it looks off." She turned her screen toward me. And then, from that moment, I made it my mission to expose them. I contacted a property attorney, someone who specialized in land disputes. When I showed him the paperwork, he couldn't believe it either. "If this is forged," he said, "you're sitting on one of the biggest lawsuits this county's ever seen." But before I could even file, the HOA started fighting. $25,000 for land they'd built a multi-million-dollar hotel on. That's when I stopped replying and started documenting everything. Every forged document, every letter, every date. I knew they thought they could bully me into giving up. But they'd made one fatal mistake. They'd underestimated how far I'd go to prove them wrong. Weeks turned. The legal process was brutal. The HOA tried everything. Delays, counterclaims, even accusing me of fraud. But my lawyer was relentless. Each time they brought up a defense, we brought up evidence. The forged signature, the county clerk's records, the emails, the construction permits filed under the wrong parcel ID. Slowly, the tide began to turn. When the court demanded to see the original authorization document, Douglas went silent. The signature didn't match my driver's license or any official record. And that's when the judge's expression changed, from polite neutrality to disbelief. Within minutes, the HOA, and yet even as I waited for the final ruling, they still tried to intimidate me. HOA members parked near my house at night, flashing their headlights through my window. They called me a troublemaker, a greedy landowner, a parasite trying to profit off the community. But what they didn't understand was that this wasn't about money anymore. It was about principle, about standing up to people who believed power and paperwork could override what's right. The night before the verdict, I couldn't sleep. I stood outside, staring at the hotel lights flickering in the distance, on my land, and thought about every time I'd been told to just let it go. Every time someone said, "It's not worth the fight." But this time it was worth it. Because I wasn't just fighting for property. I was fighting to remind them, and everyone watching, that arrogance always comes with a price. The next morning, when the judge struck the gavel and declared the hotel legally mine, the sound echoed through the courtroom like thunder. I wasn't just vindicated. I was now officially the owner of the very thing they built to erase me. A week later, I walked through the hotel for the first time as its rightful owner. The staff greeted me nervously, unsure of what to expect. I didn't gloat. I didn't fire anyone. I just walked slowly through the halls, touching the walls, looking out over the land that was mine again. In the lobby, the chandelier glistened in the morning light. Beneath it, the marble floor still had faint scuffs from the day I'd first confronted Douglas. It felt symbolic, a reminder that even the most polished lies eventually crack. As I stood there, one thought kept echoing in my head. They thought they could bury me under concrete and contracts. But all they did was build my victory higher, because justice doesn't always come with handcuffs or headlines. Sometimes it comes with a key card to every single room they thought I'd never step foot in again.